I think if I can speak now, Sarah, if you don't mind, the thing about learning intentions is kids, it's just like outcomes. Kids don't necessarily need to understand fully what the syllabus outcome is. It's about translating it into knowledge, understanding, and what I need to be able to do. So in the actual learning and the task itself, we need to embed that language. And then at the end of the task, we need to revisit it, just as we do in a lesson, where we say, what are the key messages I now understand and can do? And what do I know as a product of what I did? And get kids to check in with themselves.
Yeah, I think that self-assessment becomes a really important process to build in now, particularly for upper primary and high school age students. Is how can they make judgments about whether they've learnt enough?
Yes. And did I get
that? Was another frustration that I heard Sarah's daughter mention when we were on a meeting, that she'd done a whole series of maths questions and she understood the process and what she needed to be able to do for these maths questions, yet she still had another 3 pages of questions that she had to complete, and she didn't see the purpose of continuing to do those questions after she'd actually worked out what the strategies and the processes were. So that self-assessment of, do I understand this? Have I learnt what I needed to learn? Can I demonstrate that I've learned it to my teacher? And if they can answer yes to those questions, then they can call time on that learning and move on to the next task, whether it be from the same subject. So that idea of they have to spend 2 hours doing a certain, task for a certain subject, do we want to limit it to that? Or do we want to open it up and say, this is the learning we need you to learn. This is the purpose for that learning. And this is how you can demonstrate that you've learnt that. Once you can demonstrate it, then your work here is done, essentially, rather than the busy work that I find for parents, it's the busy work that's becoming their greatest frustration, because that's where they're fighting with their kids about having to sit at a desk. And we don't need to replicate seat time at home as we do at school. It's a different beast altogether. And I think the more we can take account of, what pressure this is putting on parents, the greater our partnerships as learning partners are going to be. Because, we've really thrown a curveball for parents, particularly those that are trying to work from home as well and manage. Some parents have got 2 or 3 kids they're trying to manage with different learning and different subject areas. So, where you can, creating activities that if there are multiple siblings across multiple years, that they might be able to, the idea of themes where they can work together and older siblings can support younger siblings' work. If they're both working towards similar learning intentions, then that's fantastic, rather than, Ellie, I think you wrote earlier on in a chat message that some older siblings are basically doing the homeschooling of their younger brothers and sisters. So it's delaying them starting their work. So it becomes a very long day for those kids, and very demanding as well. So how we can sort of negotiate that, I think, is some thinking as well, that now that the franticness has started to settle a little bit, if we can, come up and take that helicopter view where we look at, well, how can we make this work better for everyone, families, kids, and for us as teachers? Is a good thing.
I think we've got a conversation running along the side here, specifically around how schools are working with their learning support officers, their teachers' aides, SLSOs, whichever term you're using in your sector or state. The question was, how are schools using their SLSOs, teachers' aides? What is working well? And we've got some examples here. SLOs are modifying tasks for the students that require extra supports. Another example are SLSOs are being asked to work more closely with individual students over the phone and using Zoom. To support students experience difficulties in a range of subject areas. Anybody want to chip in with a strategy or a concern?
Sarah. The thing that has come through from my school has been that those kids that really struggle with the learning are those that are quite happy not to engage in the learning. So this whole thing is like fantastic, because, you know, I've got a chance I don't have to do any learning. So we've just found that the SLSOs need to keep contact, make them feel worthwhile, because it's all that belief in themselves and their confidence. And once a day, they just have different people for different subjects. So they might say, we'll do English today, we'll do maths tomorrow. But the SLSOs do all that work anyway, and they just take what a teacher has, look at it, check it, and say, how would this look for Johnny? And then they support the child to engage, and if need be, they send new material. And like, that's tough, but it's already tough on teachers already to try to, you know, tier their lessons. So they figure they're engaged for that, and most SLSOs really have a nice relationship with their kids and want to keep that going and make those kids feel worthwhile.
Yeah, I think that, as we said at the beginning, that contact with some of our students in particular is going to be crucial for their engagement. I'm interested what other people's experiences are about how teachers work with SLSOs to proactively plan the lessons. I mean, we've got a short reprieve with the school holidays now, but going back into term 2, so there's not the delay, so there's not the lesson being created for the class and then something is tweaked and adjusted for an individual student. Does anybody have some strategies that they've been working on to be how they proactively work with their SLSOs?
Yes, I'm from Tamworth. We have quite a few students who do not have access to internet, and also the ability for the parents to monitor their learning. Our SLOs are part of the classroom, so they can get onto our classroom as well and monitor if those students are going okay. They ring those students, they let us know every day and give us a list of what students are actually being rung, and we have to let that SLSO know any issues and concerns that we have. Our SLL are also driving to these houses to also assist, and I'm not talking about being in town. So they're driving out of town to the farms and to the small communities to assist and to drop off packages of work. We've also have a strategy that we're having small sessions, and our timetables have changed for stage 4 and 5. My classroom has templates and scaffolds. So in those scaffolds, students can choose to do dot points, to write paragraphs in each one, or concept map, apply a picture to how they feel, lots of different ways and mediums to present their knowledge. And lastly, my work is set so everyone can complete it in a set time, and it's working because they're doing it. A lot of students were not doing it because they thought they couldn't complete the work in a set time or when they wanted to finish it. And a lot of those students, after 20 to 30 minutes, it's enough. So I'm having success with small chunks, and the SLLOs are supporting us with that. So it's a bit difficult here when we don't have a lot of internet users. We've handed out a lot of computers to our students here in Tamworth. So that's what we're doing at the moment. So they are doing a wonderful job.
Okay.
I've heard some schools, in order to get around the internet issue, that they're also using USBs, where they're downloading the work onto USBs, so kids can still do it digitally with access from a school laptop, but rather than having the wads of paperwork that can be quite disconcerting for a lot of students. So that's another option.
We do that too.
I know that I think there's a couple of you here who at your school, your SLSOs have intentionally been included in some of the technology training so that they're able to make the introductory videos or additional resources for the teachers. And I think that's something to bear in mind moving forward, is that idea of how do we need to upskill our teachers and our teachers' aides, and how can we support that working together so that the teachers' aides can be making some of the additional materials that goes as the package to everybody, not as necessarily the separate package afterwards.